my name is Devin Moreno and welcome to the Baltimore Investors YouTube channel. And today I want to share with you a story about how I got scammed. So obviously this is gonna happen. Here I am 2 years into my investing journey and I have zero renovation experience, absolutely no knowledge of homes, how to buy them, no construction experience, nothing. I couldn't even tell you how to build a shelf when I first started this entire thing. A lot of investors are going to share with you their advice on how to avoid these scam contractors, but not being able to relate certain little limitations that you might have if you're not used to this business at all. So I'm going to go into how exactly I got scammed, the lessons I learned from it, and how I actually got out of the situation while still managing to keep the house. The story begins with actually my second house. See, the first one that I had was actually a house hack requiring very little renovation. So no scams there just yet. But once I got the second one, I had a duplex. It was a 2-unit duplex with 700 square foot apartments, and it was pretty small, didn't really need a whole hell of a lot of work, just needed cosmetic changes. There was, some touch-ups, the walls needed to be updated, the ceilings were just crappy, the carpet was disgusting. I mean, it was a gross house, but by no means a difficult project for any seasoned investor. So the story starts off with me trying to find a general contractor. What is that, you might ask? Well, that's someone who manages the project for you. And there I learned lesson number 1 about investing in real estate with not enough money. So here's the deal. This duplex was about $60,000 to purchase. My renovation was $25,000 and I knew the ARV was going to be about $115,000. So renovation being $25,000 for these cosmetic changes that I needed to make, I figure, okay, I'll just find someone who's interested in that money. The problem with a GC though is they like to take 20% off the top for themselves. And this is where all of them started ignoring me pretty quickly. See, 20% of $25,000 is not a whole hell of a lot of money. And fortunately, it took about the 7th contractor to finally let me know this. A lot of them would just not give me a quote. I could it took forever to figure out somebody who would help me with this. So someone finally pulled me aside and said, look, you're not gonna be able to find a GC to do this project. It's just not enough money in it for them. They need a bigger project. Except for one. One GC did actually decide to help me out, and this is when we get into our scammers. So they used a famous line for me that I now will no longer trust again, which is they wanted to help me because they specialize in helping new investors. Obviously, this is not a real thing. Really what it is they find newbies who have no idea what they're doing and rip them the hell off. So I decided to go ahead and utilize them. I needed a general contractor because I had a full-time job, didn't know what I was doing, I needed some help along the way. Yes, I had a mentor, but he wasn't going to be able to help me every single step of the process. So I went ahead and accepted, but knowing I should probably be careful of these two. So they first started off giving me the quote. And this is where I should have known something was wrong. See, this quote was $40,000. For 1 unit. And this is obviously entirely too expensive. I mean, the fact that a quote would be $40,000 at all for not the whole house, I mean, it was already absurd. Remember, this is just cosmetic stuff. No HVAC, very minimal plumbing, very minimal anything. Obviously, there was already an issue, so what I did was I slashed down the scope of work until eventually I got it to a point where it was about $20,000, knowing I could play with a little bit of wiggle room. Well, the contractors were okay with that. Why? Because they were going to get me on lesson number 2, and that's change orders. See, when contractors start making a ton of change orders, it's because they're trying to rack up the amount that they want you to charge. See, they made me sign a contract. Well, they didn't make me, but they had me sign a contract that they already knew was missing some steps in order to get other steps accomplished. They already knew that I was going to need to do some more work in order to do what it is they were having me do. These guys wanted me to change everything. I mean, they were trying to renovate and make it a brand new house while not tearing down certain walls. I don't get that part. Essentially, they really wanted me to eventually redo the ceiling, which I guess kind of needed to be done, but they wanted to charge me an arm and a leg for that. They wanted to constantly just put changes. Hey, we need this changed, we need that changed, and they were just really trying to rake in the money. So I tried to negotiate with them, and they were like, look, If you get the materials, then we'll cut down some of the prices. That's what they told me. So I'm like, all right, fine, I'll get the materials. Only problem with me getting the materials was I don't know what the hell any material is. And so they gave me a material list, just a bunch of things, and it took me like 5 hours in a Home Depot to try to find all these options. I could have probably tried to go online, but there's so many different options of anything that I needed to ask someone about stuff. Yeah, they could say collated nails, but which type of collated nails for their nail gun? It was just a nightmare and a mess. There's so many different versions of everything they needed. So they already knew I wasn't going to be able to do this. Then when I got the wrong materials, they were like, we're going to have to charge you to go and get the right ones. So, of course. So they came out there and they got all the materials that they needed. And then they started hitting me on other little scams, saying that I needed multiple plumbing permits and multiple electric permits because I had a 2-unit house in order to do anything. By the way, I was installing a vanity and they said I needed a permit for this. And they said, they would say I needed a permit for anything. If I needed a new ceiling fan, I needed a permit for it. Now, at the time, I didn't really know, but I was trying to look it up and I, bounce information off. Well, then I was trying to figure out why is it that I need 2 permits? And they were like, oh, it's because it's a duplex. You need 2 houses. Well, they were charging me $500 a permit. See, what they were really knowing was they knew I only needed 1 permit and they were going to pocket the rest of the cash. But I just logicked my way out of that one. I'm like, wait a minute. So you're saying that if I had an 18-unit building, I would need 18 permits? That doesn't make any sense. And so they went ahead and said, I don't know, which is already a red flag because how do you not know? You say you renovate houses all the time. But whatever. So they were trying to dance around that one. And as they're doing these renovations, they did this for about a month, just getting me on permits, trying to. I actually ended up doing the house without permits, which was annoying enough because they were supposed to actually get the permits and they never did that. And they tried to get me on materials, which they actually did get me on because when I finally got them out of there, I realized I was buying materials for other jobs, and I'll get into that one. So they ended up doing this whole circus for probably about a month, and they were having me buy more and more materials. I constantly always needed more stuff. Material costs were getting insane. The material costs were almost equaling the labor on this entire thing, like $25,000 in materials. It was getting absolutely ridiculous. And I'm like, what is going on here? As a new investor, I'm like, this should not cost this much. And keep in mind, we're only talking about 1 unit. Even as a person not knowing anything, I really can't deal with this. I'm not going to have enough money. They're going to bury me in $100,000 of renovation budget. So I finally needed to get rid of them. The problem was these 2 were a little bit of the aggressive types, and I knew if I tried to fire them, they might try to retaliate. So I waited till they were on vacation. This was actually about a month in. They even told me they're going to have to leave for a few weeks. When they were on vacation, I went ahead and just barred all the windows, screwed the door shut. You can just screw it right into the frame. Finally, just got all their stuff and put it in the shed. I didn't want them re-entering that house ever again. And when they finally got back, I told them where their stuff was. They went ahead and tried to fight me on this one. And, this whole time they're being friendly contractors. Now that they want to suddenly start fighting me on it. And they were like, well, we did this, this, and this for you, so you actually owe us $7 more grand. Now, fortunately for me, I had a lovely little Excel spreadsheet that showed exactly what they did, broke it down by the scope of work, and showed, no, actually, they owed me money because there was work they didn't do. But I wasn't going to fight them for it. Why? Because I'm a new investor. That's the thing. I could have fought him and tried to sue him and go to court with him, but I am a new investor not knowing what he's doing. If I start fighting in their arena, it's very possible they could win even though they were in the wrong. I didn't want to take that battle. I didn't need new enemies in my beginnings of my real estate journey. So I'm just like, you know what? Just get the hell out. And the only way I could convince them to actually get out was to start crying and complaining. Not really crying, but basically saying, I'm going to quit real estate. I'm done with this. This is too hard. I don't want to do this anymore. Just literally everything that I could possibly say that they are used to new investors saying. See, a lot of investors, they quit early. And I could use that to my advantage. This sounded like a very realistic situation. So they finally backed down probably about 2 weeks. Then I spent another week just kind of waiting them out, making sure they can come back to the property. Finally brought in another contractor who actually did do the job right. And as soon as he came in, he looked around at the materials that I got and he saw I remember it with the 8 50-gallon buckets of joint compound. He looked at that and was like, why do you have 8 50-gallon buckets of joint compound for this house? And I'm like, well, that's what they told me to get. And he's like, you only need 2. And so remember, these are 2 700 square foot apartments, so it really wasn't that much. But as a new investor, I have no idea how many I need. I'm just following the rules here. Also, they made me buy the nails, as I mentioned before. And here's the third lesson of real estate that I learned in this one. The contractor is going to end up providing a lot of those smaller materials. I ended up buying face masks. I ended up buying gloves and any towels they needed, their contractor trash bags. This is stuff that actually the contractor is supposed to have himself. This is an expected cost of doing business. But as a new contractor, they made me purchase all that because I had no idea. Now, I could have asked around, and I did over time, but this does take a little while to kind of get to the meat and potatoes of it, because the thing is, you have to know to even ask. How would I know that when someone says, oh, you get all the materials, that doesn't actually mean all the materials? It just means kind of the base products. But that, luckily, this other contractor did not only a far superior job, but for actually the right price. He absolutely saved this project for me. But that is my story about being scammed by a contractor. We're talking about them having me buy extra materials. By the way, what were those extra materials for? That was for their other projects. Yeah, that's a thing. Contractors will sometimes have you buy materials for their other renovation jobs. They had 2 other renovation jobs going on, and they were shipping those materials over to their other projects. So they were probably charging someone else to get the materials, and then getting the materials for free by having me do it. So just be careful about that. Know what kind of materials you need and how many you're gonna need. Try to cross the list with someone else, like a mentor, if you can. The next thing, they obviously kind of scammed me on, change orders. Just be careful about that. In fact, I would often say, if you have a change order, just make sure they understand they are never gonna work the change order. You just do that change order through someone else. They're never gonna receive the money for it. It's a little bit of an extreme option, but as a new investor, we got to do what we can to protect ourselves. As far as the GCs part, if your budget isn't large enough, you really aren't going to find a GC. And for $25,000, a lot of them aren't going to work with you. So there's a couple stories and all of that, and definitely I hope you guys do not find contractors like this. But if you do, just be very delicate about getting rid of them, because they can become very hostile, especially if you accuse them of scamming you. And you can end up having a war that is a lot more expensive for you to fight than it is for them. So anyway, I appreciate you all with that story. Like the video. I definitely appreciate the likes. I'm trying to figure out the kind of content that I want to share on this channel. I want to share some of my stories as a new investor and kind of the things that I went through. So anyway, I will talk to you all real soon.